Hello, I'm Kyle Derek McDonald, and I'm the author of The Blessed. Thank you for joining me on this epic adventure, which started in the video game-soaked and ancient epic-addled brain of a 16-year-old many years ago. You're going to hear music, actors doing character voices, sound effects, adventure, heartbreak, despair, and daring. And you're going to encounter some fairly elaborate language. These and thous, and a few words that may not be entirely in circulation anymore. But the rarer words are defined at the bottom of the page, and you'll be theeing and thouing in your daily life in no time. Why, Kyle, you may ask, why do this to me? I thought we were going to be friends. There are a few answers to this. One is that good poetry and rhyme positively need lexical variety. 2, you can use some of these fancy words to vanquish that vaguely passive-aggressive know-it-all at your next work function or party, and thereby completely kill all of your social avenues so that you'll have the isolation you've always longed for. And 3, I'm just a sadist. Really, I'm talking about number 1. Let me tell you my thoughts on it. I want you to think of food, and all the different kinds that you like. Think of your top 3 dishes. Now, would you be content to eat those same 3 dishes every day, forever? Most of us would consider that a punishment. The way most of us feel about food is how I feel about language. I want variety, I want it to be calorie-rich, and I want it to be exotic. So think of this less as an intellectual pursuit, and rather more as a gourmet experience. Some of these foods you won't have encountered before, but I promise you, they'll be very, very tasty. And if you're feeling ambitious, you can get yourself a copy of the softcover from the Amazon link and read along. All proceeds go to me and the artists. Links in the description or look for the button on the website. And just a note about vocabulary on these next few Canti, which are chapters, you'll hear a few words you may not have encountered before. One of them is wight, W-I-G-H-T, and it simply means person. Without any further prologuing, let's go together into the land of Thédd, where some grave mischief is afoot. The Blessed, by Kyle Derek McDonald, with Luke Marty, ANDREA IRWIN, and Brianne Tucker. Canto I, The Pilgrim Arrives.
Roll thunder, lightning strike, Empyrean weep. Let nature's fury ravage lands below, and keep all frightened souls from docile sleep, that they may view the welkin's angry show. And there, beneath the grinding sky that roars and wails, a daring pilgrim through the raging water sails. Arrayed in sable cloak, the oars he plies, neither recoiling from the wind nor rain. He openly the surly surf defies, being of warlike stock, inured to pain. At length he runs ashore upon the sopping strand, and drags with ease his vessel up the sodden sand. He pulls a great sword from his vessel's bed. 6 feet it stands, and double stone it weighs. The righteous man before it bows his head, and the corrupted man it gladly slays. Scalpel, his sword atop his bulky frame he slings, then leaves his hollow ship and up the beachhead springs.
Virilus Magnus!
Sounded through the rain, a lonely voice pronouncing his dread name.
Virilus Magnus!
Came the voice again, seeking that hulking man of martial fame, whose warlike exploits had astounded hopeful ears, and driven the most villainous to dreadful tears. Mighty Virilus, in his stature huge, his title hears and slows his racing gait. He scans the literal for subterfuge, being ever chary of the foeman's hate. Sure no trepan awaits to snare him on his way. He fills his spanning lungs, which gives him breath to say,
"'Tis he whose name thou callst.
Who is't that speaks?" His voice called from the bosom of the earth, stirred ocean floors and rattled mountain peaks.
Virilus!
The reply,
O man of worth! I am the Archon, and 'tis I who summoned thee. I am Sagir. Thou needst fear naught of treachery.
"Then," said Virilus, "I am come for thee."
Yea, great Virilus, much have I to expound. What erst was lush is now a flooded lea, for Xolis, as the Emperor, is crowned. His hordes, like flame, have raced across the palsied land. Our lords are too amazed to raise offensive hand. Our perils now attain their apogee, yet let us quit this most inclement plot, and find a warmer loo for colloquy. An inn there is nearby that well I wot. Follow, and keep thy visage covered for astound. Soon answers to thy cressive questions shall abound.
Sagir, his voice refined and gentle, leads. Virilus follows, striding up the shore. The gurgle, as the pitchy surf recedes, is bested only by the boreal roar. A rugged heath great Magnus and his guide traversed, each in his own particular febrile thoughts immersed. The pair approached an edifice of stone, whose mortared bricks the howling winds repelled. A gentle amber from the windows shone, the sight of which alone their shivers quelled. Virilus for his towering height ducked through the door, and eased his ponderous mass upon the wooden floor. It crepitated for the enormous strain, nor could his cloak conceal his body's might. From gaping those within could not refrain, for never had they seen so huge a wight. Sagir threw off his cowl to show a handsome face, one lacking the expected folds of age's grace. Virilus, though, to doff his hood abstained, and scrutinized the company instead. The acrid smell of streaming barley reigned, as sullen men imbibed, discoursed, and fed. More bitter than the barley was the scent of fear. Behind each sweating frown, pale dread was seen to appear.
Our lodgings are secured. There let us wend. In private conference more will I say.
The hawk replied, "I have not eaten, friend."
Forgive me. Yea, thy wants I shall allay.
The twain and escalier ascended to the room, with but a candle's light their progress to illume. The chamber was diminutive yet fine, decked with 2 beds, a table, and a chair.
Lord Magnus, come and sit thee down to dine.
"To dine? What victual is to be my fare?"
Why, these, lord,
said Sagir, while casting forth his spell, conjuring up a meal Virilus' pangs to quell. Before them spread an appetizing feast, complete with spiced wine and sugared cates. Now smiles Virilus, whose complaints had ceased, and who a capon's breast incorporates. The shrewd Sagir, divested of his dripping cloak, sat on a bed, and to the great Virilus spoke.
Eat heartily. Long hath thy journey been, and for that, all my gratitude thou hast.
"To aid Sagir, my valor is most keen. Now tell me, how hath justice been harassed?" Then did Virilus cast away his dampened veil, to show a countenance both beauteous and hale, features divine in their proportioned scheme. His eyes were livid like the silver vault, his lips a plushy erubescent team. His was a manful visage without fault. Sagir admired the rugged beauty of his guest, and then resumed the prelude to his parlous quest.
Be patient, listen, and I will be brief. Xolis, a warlock, hath enthralled the land. With his rude horde he's brought us all to grief, for none can his abrupt advance withstand. 5 moons ago this sorcerer fomented war by crossing into northern lands with martial store. Without a word or warning he impinged, and by deception trounced the northern kings, who to resign their garlands were constringed. His forces speed as though endowed with wings. Of kingdoms free from yoke, Soraxos is the last.
How is it, unnoted, he such soldiery amassed?
We do not know from whence his armies came.
And once the northern realms this Xolis took, why did ye not repudiate his claim? Sagir responded with a bashful look. Ah, Magnus sighed. Thou thought'st his press he would abate, and that this conquest his desires would satiate.
The north by fractious lords hath oft been driven, and we to interfere with them are loath, lest Concord's fragile tapestry be riven. To keep the peace, the Archon swears an oath.
Admirable. Yet, by waiting, tears translate to tatters. Thy concordat this warlock in his tempest scatters.
Aye, to repair it, we'd have thee make essay. Please, thrash this despot and reclaim our home.
Hast able lords or armies in array, with which I can eject him from thy loam?
Alack, our martial dispositions I don't know,
replied the solemn mage, his brow depressed in woe. Virilus saw his grief, he was so young, but 25, with such duty loaded. This watchful silence loosed the wizard's tongue, who feared his lapses had his worth corroded.
Though I know naught of fighting, armaments, or files, I can profess to be a thing of wit and wiles.
I've heard enough. Virilus Magnus spoke, as from his quivering chair he briskly rose. Within the mage this apprehension woke, seizing his slender frame from pate to toes.
Oh gods, I've failed,
thought he.
He will reject this feat.
But Magnus vowed, I'll drive the warlock to retreat. Sagir was comforted by this bold claim, and then declared in manifest relief,
Thou noble king, thou honourest thy fame, and will, sans doubt, soon reprimand this thief. But come, I have more to divulge unto thine ears, for there looms more within thy quest than what appears.
Virilus sits anew, Sagir explains.
The immortal gods, our benefactors true, whom in their care of us take noble pains, have chosen from the mortal stock a few, in whom they have reposed endowments like their own. What I impart to thee of this is little known. The gods, thou wot'st, hath each a double force. Great Fervidus is lord of fire and might. ANDREA the mind and water doth endorse. Ventus stirs up the winds and wisdom's light. Fair Thona is the queen of earth and beauty's charms. Salubria is friend to health and foe to harms. Though 5 immortals rule above with care, there is a 6th by turpitude consumed. Mad Lisor, who is lief his bane to share, and whom with hate and malice oft hath fumed. On holy Icara he mounted an attack, whilst riding on a vicious dragon's scaly back.
That story is well known, Virilus said. He stormed the palace with a dragon horde, the fiercest Fanthar by his own hand bred, in hopes to crown himself the overlord.
Indeed, but he and all his drakish crew were felled. The drakes were slain, then Lisor into chains compelled. He was imprisoned in the depths of Dis, there to reside until the end of time. But shaken by the breach of armistice, the gods deliberated on this crime and mused on how such future treason to prevent. ANDREA and Ventus pondered up a muniment to imbue selected souls with powers divine, whose duty is to safeguard heaven's estates. These are the blessed, tumults anodyne. Decease alone the blessing abrogates, whereon the gift upon another is conferred. Thus, future allies for the immortals are assured,
who now with godly graces are bestowed.
Huge Fervidus to Cratus gave dense thew. In my mind comprehension ANDREA sowed. Geros sagacity from Ventus drew. Great Thona blessed the comely Thalia with her wares. And with the mild Irena, kind Salubria shares. And yet, 'tis said that Lisor, though exiled, a mortal with his savagery hath tainted. Stugnetos by that god hath been defiled. Though witless we how he was darkly sainted, But worse, 2 of the blessed from righteousness have turned, and by this woeful action have the heavens spurned.
What urged the blessed their senses to deport?
Methinks it is an inculcation spell. Such hexes are most onerous to thwart, and can induce the wise to welcome hell. 'Tis for this reason also that I've summoned thee. Should he seize me, it would be a catastrophe. For with my powers, I repine to think there would be scant he could not subjugate.
Bright Aquin's brow, where thou in fear wouldst shrink, then how shall I his summons obviate? By Xolis' sorcery shall I not be enchanted, and have my sovereign wits with sycophants supplanted?
I cannot answer that. Yet Geros may. From Xolis' hex the ancient sage is free. Seek him, and reck what wisdom he shall say, for he abounds in perspicacity.
Tell me, where shall I find this said astucious seer, whose remedies to rack are welcome to mine ear?
I would I knew.
Sagir said in complaint.
Nor friend nor foe can find the augur's stead, for in his wisdom, or fear of distraint, he's all mewed up, and nowhere will he tread.
Another dubious task dost thou allot to me. I must have help, sir, if I am to succor thee.
The gods will guide thee unto his abode. Trust in their will. Strike north tomorrow morning. Travel with haste, and keep thee nigh the road. Untrodden paths with murderers are swarming.
It shall be done. Yet could I beg of thee a steed? With such a boon, I could traverse with greater speed.
There is a courser I can recommend. Celeria she's clept. Proud is her frame. All other destriers doth she transcend. And though she's from the wild lands, she is tame. Her I bequeath to thee. May her unrivaled speed avail thee in delivering Xolis' bitter mead. But come now, great one, take upon thee rest. For me, I cannot tarry, but must go.
I understand. Thou must heed duty's hest. Whoever scorns to drowse defeats his foe. But tell me, whither dost thou go this roaring eve?
The faculty of sortilege demands my leave. The temple's counselors must hear my cares, and evil seldom takes a holiday. I'll find thee. Be beseeching in thy prayers. Go north. Forgive me, for I cannot stay.
Farewell, Sagir. May honor be thy sovereign guide. This mandate buoyed the Archon as he stepped outside. The knight was now alone, but lacked no cheer, as bread and viands blanketed the table, and aromatic wine in casks sat near. He ate, then slept as long as he was able, as haggard dreams, like lightning, blazed throughout his mind, some pleasant, others strange, but most of them maligned. Being a general of gruesome war, he was no stranger to imposing sights. How many times had he been doused in gore? How oft had he beheld abysmal frights? How many adversaries pledged he unto hell? How many enemies by his great prowess fell? Of what his swevens told he could scarce say, save that he circled a familiar tree, whose umber bark appeared suffused with tray, with girlish tresses for its canopy. What signified this trunk unto the cavalier? There was beneath its foliage buried someone dear, implanted on the day she was interred. The sapling had since towards the vault extended. Would she be so robust had she endured? In such reflections was the hawk suspended, and while his sieged mind strove to be unencumbered, the stormy night passed as he feverishly slumbered. Hello, and welcome back to Thédd. I'm Kyle. Let's begin. The story so far. Virilus Magnus, the mighty king of Thunderworld, has sailed across the channel to meet with the young wizard Sagir, who's also the head mage of the Faculty of Sortilege. Sagir tells Virilus that Thédd is being dominated by a warlock named Xolis, and that he needs his help to expel the invader. Sagir talks about the gods and their protégés called the Blessed. Fervidus is the god of strength and fire, and has blessed Cratus. AQUIN is the god of intelligence and water, and has blessed Sagir. Ventus is the god of wisdom and the wind, and has blessed Geros. Thona is the goddess of beauty and earth, and has blessed Thalia. Solubria is the goddess of peace and health, and has blessed Irena. And Lisor is the god of chaos, and has blessed Stugnetos. Sagir says that Cratus and Stugnetos have joined with Xolis, and that Virilus must find Geros to ask him what to do next. After Virilus accepts the challenge, Sagir departs on other business. Virilus then settles down to sleep, but is visited by uncomfortable dreams that feature a tree beneath which someone dear to him is buried. Now we follow Virilus after he wakes up. The Blessed by Kyle Derek McDonald, with Luke Marty, ANDREA IRWIN, and Brianne Tucker. Canto II, An Alliance. With eagerness the dewy dawn arises, and as a soldier with an iron heart, Virilus to remain in bed misprizes, and in his raiment decks his every part. He takes a pastry cake to break his evening's fast, and stows the rest for an eventual repast. When from the fusty tavern he debauched, an ancient ostler brought Salaria forth. She was as hardy as the wizard vouched. Up leaps Virilus. Straight they gallop north. The charger did not bawl nor bend beneath her master, but traced the cobbled road and bolted ever faster. The lowering clouds from heaven's brow now cleared. Salacious beams embraced the lands below. The steed shone argent, by this light endeared, and hurtled like a missile from a bow. Through day and night the twain pressed hard the chalky road, hoping to hap upon the soothsayer's abode. Scantiest soul spied they on the lane, for frosty terror stalked the countryside, and by contagion of his horrid reign, the people's bravery was pacified. Mute menace and relentless solitude pervade, as champion and mount traverse the quiet glade. While passing through a bosque the road to shy, he heard a raging clamor cleave the air. A mortal struggle doth this din imply. Now forward does the knight exhort his mare. Deeper into the wood, Virilus pressed this pace, Salaria advancing like it was the chase. Eftsoons they came upon the Tintamar, where they beheld a man by foes beset. Several monsters sought his path to bar. The aberrant, or the accursed, their epithet. These oddities were man and beast conjoined in one. None could say how it was their race had been begun. While some were mantled with repugnant feathers, others bore tusks or horns, and heath-like flesh, while others still to living death were debtors. Their corroded limbs could not refresh. To pain, these wretches were entirely immune, which only made them more laborious to expune. 4 of these baleful beasts besieged a knight, who nimbly evitated all their blows. Yet he could not their vehemence requite, having no time their onslaught to oppose, since all his sinew and dexterity he plied, quietus from their flashing armaments to chide. Nor horse nor shield possessed this lonesome soul. He toiled on foot with hauberk and a blade, whose resonance served as his mouth's parole, and whose hard edge his mordant bite displayed. Here he rebuffs a thrust, and here a slash defies. There parries an assault, and thwarts now a surprise. Advantage will not bend to either side. The accursed prosecute their suit to kill, while the lone warrior maintains his stride, and keeps his tender heart alive by skill. Had not Virilus happed upon this bloody spot, who knows how long these adversaries would have fought. Solaria's thundering hoofs now reach their ears, and from the moil the monsters disengage, while the afflicted man suspends his fears, unwitting whether to rejoice or rage. Virilus, monarch of the warrior's code, declaimed, "Which single mortal by 4 beasts shall not be tamed? What great dispute hath caused this unjust brawl? What hath he done to warrant such a fate?" His sonorous pronouncement awed them all. The accursed but gazed. He sought to elucidate. "Adventitious traveler, behold the king, who knows no bounds of grief or suffering. Defy with me these felons and their liege. My kingdom, sir, is no more proud or free. She, seized by their deception, not by siege. Theirs is the portrait of iniquity. I have endured my trials by the force of arms, and now I find destruction by these monsters' harms." Detecting truth in what was intimated, the warlike Magnus crushed his brow and growled, wherewith the forest's trunks reverberated. To fight his dauntless destrier he rowled. The 4 accursed addressed them to this fervent charge, and looked upon his brawny bosom as their targe. Agog to crush these beasts without his glaive, Virilus vaults, alighting on a foe whose spine collapses in a buckling wave. Both cavalier and monster earthward go. Magnus leapt up, the beast would never rise up more. Now were there 3 opponents when there erst were 4. Indifferent to their colleagues' brutal end, the other cursed leaped to join the fray, swinging their swords, Virilus flesh to rend, while crying out like hunting hounds at prey. The towering champion, with his arms' expansive length, rebuffed the swooping strokes of his opponent's strength. With bellicose jocundity he frisked, as if he were a youth at idle play. Though battle with but naked hands he risked, he leapt and gambled freely round the fray, as though he danced a heavy hour to beguile, hardly as though he struggled in a martial trial. Anon, his mirth diminishes, then wanes, as is the wont of any pleasure's rule. Finding the sport unworthy of his pains, he hastened to conclude the tedious duel. He quickly stooped and plucked a boulder from the earth, which scorned his brawny arms' embraces for its girth. Aloft he hoists it with impressive ease. Astonishment compels the accursed to halt, as terror's icy grasp assails their knees, stilling them for the imminent assault. Now plunges that behemoth stone with raucous power, repaying vital nature her initial dower. The earth resounded neath the callous weight. The fruitless outcries of the slain were quelled by that magnific boulder's ruthless freight. The clash was done, the peril was dispelled. The grateful rescued could not his surprise suppress, but marveled at the might that buttressed his success. "Good sir, who hath these heinous foes allayed? Ne'er have I seen such ease and grace in the field. Tell me the name of he who hath essayed, and saved this chief, reft of his mount and shield." To this request, made in a humble, awestruck tone, Virilus made reply. "Iwis to thee I'm known, and seeing in thee more of friend than foe, I will divulge my purpose and my name. I've come to succor ye from tyrant's woe, Virilus Magnus I." "I wot thy fame, art lord of Thunderworld?" the chieftain asked. "Verily, with that empire's weal I have been tasked." "The imperator on these dolent shores," resumed the king. "What mysteries abound? Where are thy forces? Where thy warlike stores? Where are the means fell Xolis to confound?" "Right here," said Virilus as he displayed his hand. "This is the weapon that will liberate thy land. Grant me the honor I have granted thee. What is thy title? Rulest thou a fief?" "Oh, Imperator, I'll speak honestly. I'm Sigurd Stall of Thuria the Chief. Though the chief no more. To Daubery my kingdom's lost. Consigning trust to Xolis wrought this fortune crossed." I sought some succor from his puissant hand, beseeching of him warriors to lend, that I might trounce a neighbor's brutal band, who coveting my crown craved to contend. With Xolis dearly purchased regiments I won, securing Thuria's future for my future son. And yet, oh, Ventus, woe upon thy silence! The very levy sent to arm my claim disarmed me in a single eve of violence, when all my men, carousing round the flame, falling to sated sleep, soused in ebriety, were hastened to death in their satiety. Without recourse to weapons or defense, they were served up like livestock for the gods. But this damned sacrifice lacked pious sense, and rather burdened with the pride of frauds. In celebration, I was haply more austere, ambling about the walls accounted for my cheer. But once the attack began, I could do naught but race and ring the alarum bell in vain. The doughtiest of us staggeringly fought, our wits befuddled by the purple stain. Like unto a man we fell, and so I fled, abandoning my hold whilst rushing forth in dread. A livid shame, so hot it pales his lips, prevents his elegiac speech to course. His hand with umbrage round his handle grips, as he resists hot rivers of remorse. With manful effort he composure reasserts, and silence to sedate oration then converts. I fled, raised forces, and besieged the foe. Around the keep we formed a ring of steel. Hunger or stoor would give them to the crow. Each day my heralds bellowed our appeal. Each day my vassals rushed to prosecute their oath, to serve their liege, their land, and their inviolate troth. And yet, despite our valiant assault, what can the might of mortal men alone do to constrain the powers of the occult? One cleft Stugnetos, Xolis' wicked drone, deployed some kind of sorcery aright to scourge. Oh, worthy sir, naught can our heinous deeds deterge. For friend on friend turned in malevolence, striking his neighbor down in rabid ire. Gone, comity, farewell benevolence. There were too few remaining to retire. I ordered that the clarion announce retreat, but lo, the warlock's triumph o'er us was complete. Again I fled, and travelled south for aid, when on this road the accursed upon me fell. They scared my steed, who pitched me as he brayed, leaving me to resist those banes from hell. On foot, like to a soldier of demeaned degree, deserted, I was prey unto the enemy. Hadst thou not haply come upon this lane? Say no more on't, O chief, ill-served by fate. The gods to bring me hither must be fain, and of this noble meeting approbate. How well, O Thuria, dost thou this country know?
Enough to aid thee bring our enemies to woe. Unto thine inquisition give but speech, and I shall do my utmost to appease.
Virilus answered, Read, friend, I beseech. Geros I seek, a reverend sage who sees. The godly will, to us opaque and recondite, is to the seer neither turbid nor disight.
Forgive me, but the name I do not know. However, there resides an elder nigh, whose wisdom a solution may bestow.
This likes me well. Unto him let us hie. 'Twould please me best if we may reach him ere the night extends her atramentus mantle over our sight.
Assist me with recovering my steed, and to the prescient I'll bring thee straight.
Thou'lt find no contradiction here, agreed. But let us hasten, it grows ever late. To find the chieftain's startled destrier they strode, keeping a wary eye upon the quiet road. Ere long, the wayward courser they discovered, stamping and neighing near a lonesome brook. Thuria's Titian warhorse thus recovered, the journey to this sage they undertook, as solemn evening her mysterious pall extended, and weary day retired unto his bed intended. Hello, and welcome back to Thédd. I'm Kyle. Let's begin. The story so far. Virilus has arrived to help Sagir expel Xolis from Thédd. Virilus comes upon Sigurd Stahl, the chief of Thuria, battling with some enemies and rescues him. Sigurd, grateful, recounts the tale of how he lost his kingdom to Xolis soldiers and joins Virilus on his quest to destroy the warlock. When asked about the sage Geros, Sigurd says he doesn't know him, but he knows another seer nearby. They go off to speak with him. Now, we rejoin Sagir as he makes his way back to the temple. The Blessed, by Kyle Derek McDonald, with Luke Marty, Andrea IRWIN, and Brianne Tucker. Canto III, Sagir's Burden. Sagir, departing from the thoughtful knight, applies his hood and through the tavern races. He stays nor for his thirst or appetite, but susurrates arcana midst his rapid paces. Ill did this rambling suit his clean and comely figure, but no one present dared oppugn this wizard's rigor. Once more in the inclement heath he strides, where screeching winds and chilling rain abounds. A traveled cloak alone respite provides, which scarce the welkin's truculence confounds. A pebble from his pouch he seizes and projects, whereat his esoteric whispers 'gan to show effects. From this small stone, now couching on the earth, emerges an expanding purple door, a standing whirlpool to another birth. He entered it, abandoning the shore, one foot upon the heath, the other far away. He stands athwart the land, like gods at play. Whither was he transported with such haste, by such abstruse and marvelous design? How many leagues so quickly were displaced, which to a pilgrim's legs would prove malign? Vast swathes, with pastures, dales, bosks, fens, and lakes supplied, he obviates, emerging on the mountainside. High and immense these ranges serpentine, divided men from those of wilder make, those whom the gods desired to confine, fearful of what would come in meeting's wake. Atop this frosty range an august temple sat, hewn from the very rock face was this habitat. Within this hallowed hall debouched Sagir, whereat the pulsing portal closed behind. Within, the walls were grand, albeit austere, with ANDREA statues centrally enshrined. Aloft extends his dexter hand with scroll adorned. Knowledge shall not be subjugated or suborned.
Knowing
Intoned Sagir.
shall always rise. Ignorance is defeated by the light.
He spoke these gentle words to eulogize the patron godhead of the erudite, ere he departed from the chamber towards his quarters. The halls were silent, reft of their familiar borders.
Where have the ephors gone?
Inquired the mage.
Are they at study or in council court?
This was a temple from another age, wherein the gifted were in magic taught. The faculty of sortilege kept stringent watch. They kept men's kingdoms from debacle and debauch. Sagir his private chambers soon achieves, where he at once casts off his weathered cloak, and then his feet of sodden boots relieves. Being weary of the bluster and the soak, delighted to be sheltered from the raging skies, an azure cassock to his body he applies. This reverent garment was the master's mode, with gold embroidered and with ermine trimmed. Upon the chosen archon it's bestowed, signaling an intelligence undimmed. The ephors answer to the archon, he to God, for only an immortal can bestow this laud. Yet, like a heavy iron pendant chain, this weighty honor dangled at his throat, and rather than rejoice in ANDREA's reign, a luctual drooping did his soul denote. Reclining lucubrations and obscure research pleased best his heart, not guiding Aquin's foremost church. Combine this with the gnashing press of war, commanding armies and opposing foes, and there is nothing he could more abhor, nothing more sure to shatter his repose. But yet this youth, with care and mansuetude replete, accepted his devoir and swallowed his defeat. And more, he was obedient to the law and grateful for his deep sagacity. He now suspired from a weary maw, aghast and sad at the rapacity, for sweeping Xolis ravaged his beloved lands. His gaze descended, falling on his trembling hands. These, formerly intrepid, smooth, and sure, now shook like slender branches in a storm.
Great gods above, afford to me recure, dispel these craven tremens false to form. In one so graced with gifts, such terror is a slight. Help me to stand as Archon for the coming night.
Fear not!
Replies a minuscule vox, which, scarcely audible, still startles him.
Salubrious heart!
He sputters as he balks. The little voice, then gleeful to the brim, jubilates soundly for her pert and sudden prank, ignoring both his dignity and premier rank.
Frey!
He cried.
Thou nigh slewest me with fright.
Whilst I with laughter thou art like to slay.
This jocund apparition was a sprite, no larger than a finger, cleped Frey, lissom and gracile, dancing on her fluttering wings. She bobs aloft while with her tiny voice she sings. Her tiny frame emits a gentle glow. Vermilion in a passion she displays, argent when calm, when grieving indigo. But more, she nature's humor can appraise, reading within the loam what outwardly is hidden, a sacred knowledge that to others is forbidden. She asks,
Didst meet Virilus by the bay?
In sooth I did. The deities be praised.
Is he as handsome as the rumors say?
And if he were, how shouldst this fact be praised, since he is towering and thou a teeny mite?
Fie! Mites abide in filthy dust. I am a sprite.
Her color waxes carmine as she shouts. She flutters round the chamber in a rage, her curses reinforced by harmless clouds upon the passive shoulders of the mage. Now laughter raises up the Archon's drooping breast, from duty's dole affording him a welcome rest.
No more, O Frey, thou apogee of light, thou sweet companion to my weary soul. The sun commands less shine than thee, O sprite.
Rather than might, I'd suffer being a troll.
But Frey, a mite is little, trolls are big and tall.
I am diminutive!
Cried she.
I am not small.
I'll hold my peace. To business, now look we. I must apprise the ephors of my news. But yet, since my return, none do I see. Where keep they? On the grounds or in their mews?
Within the Aquanapagus, on thee they wait.
They do? Then I must venture to address them straight.
On to the Aquanapagus they went, where, as asserted, all the ephors waited, sitting about a table's round extent. They whispered as they heatedly debated, their sibilance along the chamber's frescoes sprawling, like slithering serpents through the jungle's grasses crawling.
I don't know. What do you advise? How long has the Archon been gone? Oh, shh, he's here. Shh.
All present stood as Aquinas approached.
Be seated, friends, I pray ye,
Quoth the mage.
and tell me how far Xolis hath encroached. Omit no detail of his fresher rage, which all-consuming spreadeth like a conflagration, growing by easy breaths through nation after nation.
First, Archon,
Croaked a weazened woman.
speak. Didst treat with him, or loll in nasery?
With Magnus, aye, that paragon of Reek, who hath no equal in his bravery, who tops the heroes of the ancient tales, agrees, and even now makes forays against our enemies.
In his mind, this resounded like the bell that calls the starving to the rich repast, that all their heinous torments will dispel. But his companions' visages held fast.
That is my news.
He stuttered.
Hope Virilus carries, but what have ye to tell? What of our adversaries?
The council's ephors numbered 12 in all, and yet in presence they were lacking 2. Already some had fallen in this brawl, one at the incipience of Xolis' coup, the other somewhere riding on the parlous road, her whereabouts unknown, her bones in mystery strode. When Vulpine Aquinas his question posed, the ephors could not help but note this dearth. Their confreres, they were sure, in mud were closed. Too well they knew their adversary's worth. Clenthé, the eldest, for the council made reply.
Our foes, your grace, all our maneuvers stultify. They shame our celebrated wits with ease. Shall I elucidate on our defeats and catalogue our mounting miseries?
Abashed, the Archon's confidence retreats. Those shameful tremors to his digits then returned, and to be anywhere but there he deeply yearned. Of him as Archon Clenthé disapproved.
This rotten child. He's green, and he's too young,
thought she,
and ought to be at once removed, and I set in his stead to the topmost rung.
Clenthé's ambitions weren't so simple to dismiss. Her age and craft spoke louder than her avarice. Yet 'twas not she the brilliant god had graced. It was not she who could absorb a book, having but once its style-led leaves embraced, while spending but a moment in a nook. It was not she who magnified Sand's efforts' cries, the power of her craft so as to shake the skies. Her boiling envy she attempts to hide, and gelid reticence perforce assumes. Like anyone who is corrupt inside, she masks her venomous and sordid rheums. Those clearer consciences who castigate ambition detect such poison and enjoin a swift demission. Yet this coverted heat hid ill in ice. Sagir discerned the embers hotly smolder, and aptly guessed at her concealed device. Because of this, with her he waxed still colder, since only folly trust lends to prevarication, and this in turn she took as insult to her station. And yet, with her assessment, he agreed. He is too young, too fresh for stately matters, with war by books acquainted, not by deed. The very thought of strife his courage scatters, and issuing commands his very soul offends. To play the part of fearless Archon, he pretends.
Archon,
inquired Clenthé.
dost thou hear?
Roused from his rumination, he awakes.
Yes, Clenthé. Pour thy tidings in mine ear, and though this churning brew behighteth aches, 'twill prove medicinal. For wellness to improve, the malady must be discovered to remove.
So, brief I'll be. The circumstance is bleak. North of Syraxos no domains remain, but all to Xolis rule are rendered meek. The kingdoms south, whilst loud with their disdain, are being presently reduced to smoking ash, and soon will fall to servitude beneath the lash. Because Syraxos' queen would stay her doom, she proffers Xolis passage through her lands, and more, affords them nourishment and room, keeping them strengthened for hot strife's demands.
Our allies, then?
Asked he. Then Clenthé.
None remain. Some are imprisoned, others turned, but most are slain.
A fearful frisson down his spine progressed.
And of the blessed hast thou tidings learned?
Nothing propitious there can we attest. Cratus to Xolis' banner hath since turned, whilst Geros and Irena both have disappeared. That they to Xolis have succumbed, 'tis mickle feared. In license Thalia spends her wanton days, utterly careless of our parlous plight. The only abstinence the stale displays is in her base abstention from the fight. Stugnetos massacres and operates at will, and doth the Empire's adversaries blithely kill. That leaves but thee, O Archon, in our sphere. And whilst Virilus in our cause proceeds, 2 of the blessed to Xolis fight adhere, while merely one, 'tis thee, their march impedes. Moreover, those who counter us are friends of war, and revel freely in the contest and the gore. Whereas with thee, from speech 'tis best to abstain. In short, O Aquinas, we have no friends, nor men, nor heroes for this dire campaign.
Her imputation at once scathes and shins, burning and chiseling away his dignity, leaving naught but a husk scarred by malignity. Indignant, Frey her hue to red converts, and flutters wildly round the Archon's head. Gently, her course behind him he diverts, lest she her fists in Clenthé's eyes embed.
Revered Ephors,
Said Sagir.
our woes are great, but tell me, please, that ye would not capitulate. For in thy words I hear sepulchral groans, as though our cause were destined for the tomb. Remains there yet no vigor in our bones for obluctation gainst this creeping doom? We'll find some friends and heroes if we be in want. Our hopes we cannot let our blessed rivals haunt. Courage and wisdom must supply our need, for are we not accomplished and sagacious? Who dares our Gnostic powers combined impede? These detriments are paltry and fugacious. Connive with me, make known thy direst predilection. Only by daring fate can we prevent dejection.
A speech of fire burned on his lips once more, but turned to smoke ere it their hearts ignited. Looks of despondent shame their faces bore, fearing to catch his eye, their honor blighted.
Why such sad physiognomies?
Inquired Sagir. No answer came, though Frey was overwrought with fear. She urged him in her little voice to
Fly!
Sagir, bewildered, turned unto the sprite, whereat old Clenthé finally gave reply.
We'll stand with Warlord Xolis in the fight. It's been decided, Archon. Now, remove that gown. Thy tenure here is done. Here endeth thy renown.
Torpid with incredulity, he gapes. How smooth was this betrayal! How complete! His grief-struck essence from his head escapes, and sees himself astonished and defeat. He watches then as he removes the master's mode, relinquishing without a fight that sacred load. Eyes more cupidinous for that blue dress than those of haggard Clenthé, there were none. Her fingers throbbed that treasure to possess, though he, in shedding it, had scarcely done. Now, Clenthé wrenched it from his hands and put the garb on. Now she commanded all the wizards as the Archon. To wake the wilted wizard from his teen, that they might hurtle through the open door, Frey tugged and tugged upon his gabardine, the garment neath the cassock that he wore. No sooner had the crone the azure robe applied, than with a cachinnation, wickedly she cried,
Thus right prevails, and as my first decree, as the presiding Archon of this order, for treason unto death I sentence thee.
Aquinas vainly struggled to exhort her.
Treachery? How?
Abetting Magnus against our Lord.
Her hand dipped in the pouch where she her tinctures stored. An igneous pebble she straight exfiltrates, then mouths a spell which makes the pebble spark. Within her palm it flares and radiates. Without delay, she casts it at her mark, whereon it blooms into a raging ball of fire. The Aquanapagus would prove to be his pyre. Though erstwhile stunned, his genius grasps the crop and goads the coursers of his wits to charge, rather than ambling at an aimless crop. Sagir deflects the bullet from its targe, and then dispels it ere it can destroy the hall.
Strike home!
Roars Frey in ire.
For their pernicious gall!
Indeed, they were deserving of reproof, apostate from the council and the light. But from attack the wizard stood aloof. The thought of injury made him contrite.
Then fly at least!
Implored the sylph.
Let's leave this place!
He took this exhortation, and they fled apace. The chasing faculty began to close, preparing their most devastating spells. Mere yards ahead of their pursuant foes, the friends no refuge found for all the cells, the Ephor's private rooms. Their every door was locked. The former Archon's chamber only was not blocked. Thither they raced, and shut the door behind. Unified by enchantment were its planks, to neuter spells the portals were designed, a boon for which Sagir gave many thanks, though only for a time could it such rage repugn. To concentrated furor it was not immune. Clenthé's cabal assailed the door with spite. Within, Sagir laid hands on all he could, stocking his means for their impending flight. The E-Force onslaught finally rent the wood. The splinters scattered through the cell where they beheld a purple portal closing, by Sagir dispelled. He and the sprite a portal had traversed.
Ah, they have escaped.
The moated crone declared, her eyes on fire, her lips in anger pursed.
But yet he is inveterately scared. His fear will see him slain, or captured and subdued. Subservience to Xolis he cannot elude.